Suddenly, Arthur is confronted by Winsome, who introduces himself as a deity, a being stronger than even a white core mage. Trying his best to remain calm, Arthur questions Winsome about the gate and the purpose of the orb he was given. In response, Winsome reveals that it was to get Arthur's attention and to talk to him face to face. Winsome informs Arthur that the world is not only made up of his home continent, Dicathen, but that the world also consists of two other continents named Ephiodus and Alakria. Alakria consists of lesser races such as humans, elves, and dwarves, while Ephiodus consists of beings who lesser races consider deities, called Asuras, the same beings who pass down artifacts and showed the people of both Dicathen and Alakria how to use magic. The Asuras consist of multiple clans containing different races. Together, they made it their job to only watch over the lesser races and never interfere unless peace or balance was threatened. But this policy was broken when the Asura, the Grona Vritra, became the new leader of the Vritra clan. Agrona exponentially grew the clan's power by studying mana and experimenting on the bodies of the lesser beings in Alakria, and using that research to enhance their own abilities. Although taken aback by the information relayed to him by Winsome, Arthur was still confused and asked Winsome why it was important for him to know all of this. To answer his question, Winsome used his powers to unveil Sylvie's true form. He told Arthur that he and his people had been searching for Sylvia for many years, and after finally finding traces of her mana, it led them to Arthur and Sylvie. Winsome reveals to Arthur that he is bonded to the granddaughter of the most powerful being in the world. He states that Agrona spies have already infiltrated Dicathen, and warns Arthur that due to his bond with Sylvie and the powerful ability passed down to him by Sylvia, they are in danger, as people would kill to have their power. Because of this, Winsome has come to recruit Arthur as an ally for Dicathen and train him in Ephiodus for the oncoming war against Agrona and Alakria, warning Arthur that as long as he cooperates, they will not have to separate him from Sylvie. Although Arthur knows that the Asuras are simply using him as a pawn in this oncoming war, in order to protect his friends and family, he agrees to work alongside Winsome and the Asuras. Back at the school, the disciplinary committee is struggling with the rapid influx of hate crimes happening around the school. Suddenly, their conversation is interrupted by a huge shockwave. As they go see what had happened, Catelyn finds the Tri-Union Hall, a place her mother fought to build, on fire. As the commotion continues, the disciplinary committee members, students, and teachers help put out the fire and help the entrapped and injured students escape the burning building. After putting out the fire, Catelyn spots Charles, and immediately the committee springs to action and detains him. After witnessing his multiple interactions with the radical group, Theodore tries to bring Charles in for interrogation, but due to their lack of evidence, Theodore and the committee are told by the teacher to release Charles. As such, Theodore shoves Charles and releases him. As Charles walks away, Catelyn can see him grinning. Elsewhere, Arthur's best friend, Elijah, is seen training but seems to be struggling. As he thinks about Arthur and tells himself that if Arthur were there, he would have stopped the fire by himself. After the fire was put out, Elijah told the disciplinary committee that Arthur had survived, and they became ecstatic after hearing the good news. Although Elijah loves and admires Arthur, he can't help but have intrusive and hateful thoughts. He wonders why, even though they are both freaks of nature, everything works out for Arthur, and why Arthur is living the life that he wishes he had. Nonetheless, after remembering his memories with Arthur, he dismisses his negative thoughts, gets back up on his feet, and starts his training in order to be able to stand by Arthur's side as an equal one day. Meanwhile, Arthur is accompanied by an elf servant of Eleanor as he heads into the city. However, as he skips past the line, thanks to the servant, he gets into an altercation with a violent and aggressive man who tells Arthur to get in line. The man also tries to attack Arthur, only to get terrified after seeing a glimpse of his power. In a flashback, it is revealed that during his conversation with Winsome, Arthur asks Winsome why it took them so long to find Sylvie, if his beast will carry Sylvia's mana signature. Winsome replies that because Arthur hid the bond's insignia with Sylvia's feather, it prevented them from sensing her presence. But now that they have found them, it is time for them to prepare. As Arthur wonders about Winsome's offer to come to Ephiodus, they get stopped by the royal guards, when suddenly the mansion starts to shake. The source of the commotion seems to be coming from Tessia, who cannot control her power after her body has fully integrated with the Elderwood Guardian's beast will. Varian explains the situation to Arthur, and together they cut down the vines emerging from Tessia as they try to get close to her. As such, Arthur uses Thunderclap Impulse to rush to Tessia and manages to reach her. He then holds her in his arms, calming her down. After being stopped, Tessia claims that she hates how she is always being helped by Arthur, and states that she will soon master the power that Arthur entrusted to her. Arthur also encourages her, stating that he will be waiting. Unbeknownst to Arthur, Wisdom is seen watching them from his realm, claiming that one day he will reveal everything to Arthur about Sylvie and the truth behind her lineage. As the atmosphere between Arthur and Tessia got steamier, Virion interferes, and they both take a step away from each other as they blush. Virion then takes Arthur to a house that isn't smashed to bits. On their way there, Arthur learned that this was Tessia's first time trying to control the beast's will. Even though her body was fully integrated, the beast was still fighting back against her mana. During their discussion, Virion also asks Arthur about what he thought of Tessia, asking if the thought of them getting married to each other ever occurred to him. Arthur tells Virion that he has feelings for Tessia, but he is not sure if he just likes Tessia or if he actually loves her. However, he hopes to find the answer with more time, and he wants to improve himself before asking for her hand in marriage. As they were talking, Tessia, who is presumed to be sleeping, is revealed to be wide awake and listening to Arthur's confession, barely managing to keep up her act as she overflows with embarrassment. Meanwhile, Arthur also gets the genius idea to get Ellie, his younger sister, a bond to protect her from danger, including weak-willed boys. As they finally reach their destination, they are greeted by Tessia's parents. Together, they then head to visit Rinia, who Tessia calls Grandma, who has isolated herself near the edge of the kingdom in order to protect herself from something. On their way to Rinia, Arthur has a short chat with Tessia's father, who thanks him and Sylvie for helping his daughter out whenever she is in danger. He also claims that he had a distaste for humans due to their cruel behavior, adding how he lost his mother in the war. Even when his daughter was kidnapped by human slave traders, it reaffirmed his hatred for humans. But that changed when she was saved thanks to a human like Arthur. As such, despite his hate, he tells Arthur that he wasn't opposed to the idea of Arthur joining his family. However, their chat is heard by the entire group. Suddenly, a creepy figure shows up behind them, and Arthur immediately springs to action. However, Virion stops him and reveals the figure to be Rinia herself. They all greet each other and chat, where Rinia boasts about her beauty, but the atmosphere takes a bad hit after Rinia claims that there was only one woman who caught Virion's eye. Arthur tries to learn more about this topic, but is stopped by Muriel. After their reunion, Rinia then guides them all into her cave and then takes them to her residence, telling them to come in as she claims they have much to discuss. As they all sat down, Rinia serves them all tea. However, upon drinking it, everyone except Arthur fell promptly asleep. Rinia was surprised by how calm Arthur was, to which he replied that he had been through a lot recently, and so it was getting harder for him to get surprised. He then asks if the conversation they both were about to have was meant to be confidential. Rinia replies yes and starts to explain to Arthur about her divination magic, which is magic that allows the user to peek into the future. She then reveals that diviners use their lifespan in order to use divination magic, and this results in them dying earlier. Rinia adds that Virion's late wife, Lania, was also a diviner, who foresaw Virion's death. As such, she did her best to delay Virion's death and ended up giving away her life. She then died in the arms of her beloved, after achieving her desired outcome. However, Rinia states that the reason she revealed this information to Arthur was not because she was looking for sympathy, but rather something else. Furthermore, she claims she used her powers, similar to how Lania did for Virion, to look into Arthur's future. Arthur is obviously perplexed by this statement and asks Rinia why she did it. Suddenly, Sylvie wakes up and jumps on Arthur's lap, as Rinia claims that she must have sensed the trouble Arthur was feeling. Rinia then continues, stating she has had visions of Arthur's future before she met him for the first time, adding that things are changing in Dicathen and he is in the center of it. As such, he will face many hardships in the future, and thus he needs an end goal, something that he wants to accomplish in his life. Before ending their conversation, Rinia offers Arthur 2 pieces of advice. First, that people do bad things for good reasons, so he shouldn't take things at surface level and should be willing to look at things from different perspectives. Second, sometimes the most dangerous enemy is not the king, but is instead the abandoned soldier who has nothing to lose. Meanwhile, Charles hands Lucas the miracle drug that was given to Marcos before. Lucas makes fun of Charles and the others for them not being strong enough to handle the drug, but upon drinking it also collapses to the ground. As Charles starts getting cocky and ridicules the collapsed Lucas, he rises up again and starts to brutally murder his fellow mates. He then moves towards Charles, who is terrified, and tells him to try and mock him once more before killing him as well. Eventually, Virion, Tessia, and everyone else wakes up from their nap. As they all have a meal, Rinia hands Tessia a bracelet, claiming that this will help keep her beast will in check. The next day, Tessia and Arthur head to Xyrus City via a teleportation gate, which is supposed to be under the tight regulation of the kingdom. But since it's Reyna, she's found a way to bypass all that. After Tessia says her farewells to everyone, They step into the gate and emerge in Cyrus. They then head to Arthur's residence and meet with his family. However, Tessia claims that she cannot stay and has to go to school as she has been neglecting her job as the student council president, and so she pays her respects and then leaves. But the night was still young, and the rest of the Leywins and friends had a wild night of drinking. As they all became more and more delirious with each drink, Helen approached Arthur, and they had a chat outside. During this, Helen tells Arthur to know what he is fighting for, and looks to be concerned for him. Arthur tells her not to worry and thanks her for looking out for him. After Helen heads back inside, Arthur thinks to himself and comes to the conclusion that he just wants to protect everyone that he has come to love in this world. Elsewhere, a mysterious red-haired man is seen, with various beasts and a huge army ready to attack. Back at the academy, the disciplinary committee is seen waiting for Dora-Drea to begin their training session as Kai turns on the barrier to prevent them from damaging the room. Dora-Drea eventually arrived, and the group told Kai to turn on the barrier. Kai turned on the barrier, but something seemed wrong. The color of the barrier was an unusual red, and the group tried to tell Kai to turn off the barrier. But Kai doesn't react to their words, and it seemed as if the barrier was soundproof. So they tried to find the emergency stop button and turn off the barrier from their side. They found the emergency stop button, but to their surprise, it had been destroyed. Suddenly, they get ambushed as cultists entered the barrier and a fight broke out. As they fought against the attackers, the group tried to hurry up and defeat the cultists in order to help Kai, who was all alone outside. But suddenly, Lucas appeared before them, laughing at their efforts as he revealed to them that Kai was the one who trapped them in there. In an instant, with his newfound power, Lucas then rushes the committee members and attacks them all simultaneously. Lucas nearly kills Theodore, but when he learns that his real target has almost arrived, he lets Theodore down and promptly leaves. With Lucas gone, Faye and Dora-Drea decide to stay behind and take on the cultists as the others escape and try to get reinforcements. They rush to find teachers and alarm the student, but it appears that they are too late. They watch in horror as they watch the monsters and the cultists overrun the school, killing and torturing innocent students. Not too far away, Tessia is almost at the school, when suddenly her escort stops and informs her of the barrier. In an instant, Tessia notices that something is wrong and tries to tell her escort to head back to Arthur's place. But before she can finish her sentence, the carriage is bombarded and engulfed in flames. Suddenly, Lucas appears before her, ecstatic that she arrived alone, claiming that now it will be easy to capture her. Tessia, despite being injured, stands up and faces Lucas. However, the bracelet Rinia gave her is revealed to be limiting her mana. Suddenly, Lucas grabs her, and Tessia figures out that she was just meant to be bait for Arthur. She mocks Lucas, claiming that his inferiority complex has reached a new low. This enrages Lucas, and he slaps Tessia. However, this was all a part of her plan, as she grabs his hand and launches an attack, trying not to become a burden to Arthur again. However, Lucas easily dispels her magic, taking minor damage. He then drags her into the barrier as she tries her best to escape somehow. Elsewhere, Elijah is found trying to stop the cultists and monsters from killing students, and learns that even some professors have joined hands with the evildoers and have joined the cultists. After chasing off the professor with Curtis's help, they are stopped in their track by a loud ringing as a mysterious red-haired man appears before them. The man calls for everyone's attention, telling them that he has something to show them and promises them that it is something they won't want to miss, as he carries something in a bag dripping with what seems to be blood. Outside the barrier are worried parents lined up as they try to find out what is going on at the academy. They are held back by the Mage and Artificers Guild workers as they try to break through the barrier. One of the workers informs their supervisor that with their current equipment, they are unable to break the barrier, claiming it has a completely different structure than their barriers. As such, they cannot enter and have to wait for either reinforcement or until their team can find a weak point in the barrier. Back inside the barrier, the students are cornered and are in very bad condition. The red-haired man reappears again before them and reveals his surprise. He throws out Dora-Drea's head, leaving the students terrified and Elijah vomiting. This enrages Theodore, and he calls out the man, calling him a coward and telling him to come and face him. Intrigued by his insult, the man reveals himself as the mighty Draeneve and pulls Theodore out of the barrier. They start their fight as Theodore launches an absurdly strong kick. However, Draeneve manages to easily evade and breaks Theodore's leg in the process. While Theodore is down, Draeneve attacks him again, burning him to a crisp as Theodore screams in agony and passes out. After dealing with Theodore, Draeneve calls his men out, and they bring with them some of the elves and dwarves of the school as they prepare to make an example out of them. Tessia and Faye are among the victims being brought out to the center stage. Curtis is furious at the fall of his beloved friends and wants to face the man, similar to Theodore, but is stopped by Catalin, who slaps him and calms him down. After getting the attention of everyone, the man then introduces himself as Draniv, who claims he has come from a faraway land, which we know is Alakria, in order to save them all. He tells them that he will prepare those that he deems worthy and strong for when his lord finally comes and takes over their kingdom. Draniv tells the crowd to rejoice as they have an opportunity to gain powers like nothing they could have ever imagined. To further prove his point, he calls out Lucas and shows everyone that with the Alakrians' help, they can obtain powers that put even the disciplinary committee and Elf Princess to shame, revealing that Lucas has already joined their side. Isekaied gets furious after seeing Lucas, screaming at him and demanding how he could betray his own people. But Lucas merely smirks at Isekaied as he brings Tessia closer to him and caresses her. This is the final straw for Isekaied, as rage overcomes him and a strange phenomenon occurs. As the word kill continuously repeats itself within Isekaied's head, he gets a huge surge of power as a black mist surrounds him and he breaks through the barrier. He makes his way toward Lucas, taking out monsters and hurting those close to him. The cultists try to stop him, but Draniv stops them and prevents them from attacking Isekaied. Before passing out, Isekaied makes one last effort to try to kill Lucas, but he only manages to stab Lucas in the shoulder. As he falls to the ground, Draniv catches him, acknowledging his strength. As Isekaied passes out, he wonders to himself where Arthur is. After Isekaied managed to break the barrier, the rest of the students and professors also rise up and go on the offensive. Draniv decides to leave, taking Isekaied with him, claiming that there has been a change of plan, and tells Lucas to follow him after taking care of the fools that are approaching. Lucas asks Draniv why he's taking a dwarf like Isekaied with them, but Draniv tells Lucas not to question him and to do as he was told. As such, Lucas and the cultists go on the offensive as well and madness ensues. During the battle, Claire spots who she believes is Kai and rushes in to stop him from escaping. But before she can reach Kai, she is suspended in the air by his ability and pierced through her chest. The others rush to her aid and try to help her, when suddenly a loud roar is sent across the battlefield, stopping everyone in their tracks. Everyone watches in silence as Arthur appears within the flames as he approaches the battlefield with his face seen to be covered in rage. Upon seeing Arthur, Claire sheds a tear, happy that Arthur will avenge the fallen, and claims that her only regret is not being able to see Lucas' expression as he gets beaten down by Arthur. Although Lucas claims that thanks to the power boost that he was given, he is at an unimaginable level and has transcended the realm of mere mortals, he can't help but wonder why, despite all this, he feels terrified. Nonetheless, he confronts Arthur and tries to trash-talk him. But he gets completely ignored as Arthur walks past him to Tessia. Arthur checks Tessa's condition and learns that she is okay aside from some minor scratches and bruises. Lucas continues trash-talking Arthur, telling him that he would cripple Tessia in front of him. Arthur finally stands up and tells Lucas that at first he deemed Lucas as nothing but a bug. But after all the damage and harm he's done to Tessia, Isekaied, and his school, he can no longer ignore him and let him go on living. Lucas, in fear, prepares multiple mana projectiles and launches them towards Arthur. Arthur orders Sylvie to protect Tessia and to stay back, as he transforms into his Realmheart form and easily block Lucas's attack with a wall of flames. Lucas slowly began to realize the power gap between him and Arthur, as he yelled at Arthur for hiding his other abilities. Refusing to give up, Lucas threw a mana spear in desperation. But Arthur caught the spear in one hand and retaliated by shooting Lucas in the arm with black lightning. Lucas yelled in agony as his left arm trembled in pain. Arthur then grabs Lucas's right arm and uses ice magic to shatter his arm, breaking it into blood and pieces. Slowly, Arthur cripples Lucas, breaking his limbs one by one. Even as he's being torn apart, Lucas doesn't stop antagonizing Arthur and laughs in his face as he tells Arthur that Draniv took Isekaied, and that there will be change in the world. He tells Arthur that he is lost, and that eventually all of his friends and family will eventually die. Tired of his mouth, Arthur slowly moves his foot over Lucas's crotch, as he tells Lucas that he will ensure that his filth does not spread to the next generation. Lucas begs for forgiveness and tells Arthur that he'll change. But Arthur is done listening and uses downforce once more, crushing Lucas's pelvis and killing him. As Lucas takes his last breath, Arthur starts to walk away, as the students and professor watch in awe and shock, after watching him effortlessly deal with Lucas. Lucas calls out for his brother, and suddenly Lucas's brother, Baron, appears along with other lances. Upon seeing his younger brother in such a state, he loses it and unleashes a powerful blast at Arthur. Arthur gets caught up in the attack, and in retaliation, Sylvie tries to fight back. Arthur warns Sylvie not to fight back, as she is quickly incapacitated by the lance Beret as she traps Sylvie in ice. Baron then approaches the injured Arthur and tries to kill him, but luckily for Arthur, gets stopped by the other lance Alfred Warrand, who tells Baron that although he understands his feelings, Arthur saved everyone from Lucas and the other cultists. However, Baron refuses to stand down and proceeds to attack, but this time he is stopped and pinned down by Beret. She tells Baron that what happens to Arthur and Sylvie is up to the council and that insubordination will not be tolerated. Baron finally stands down, and together the lances treat and evacuate everyone out of the academy. After his wounds are tended to, Beret approaches Arthur and puts him in cuffs and seals his monocore to ensure that he doesn't escape. She releases Sylvie and allows her to return to Arthur as they prepare to be taken into custody. As they both are being taken away, Arthur's family shows up. With permission, Arthur has a short chat with them, where he claims he will come back soon and tells them not to worry. Suddenly, Beret gets a message from the council and calls Arthur over to her. She announces that the council has already made their decision and reveals that, as punishment for his actions, Arthur's monocore will be restrained and his title as a mage will be stripped from him immediately, and until further judgment, he will be incarcerated. Everyone is distressed and shocked at Arthur's punishment. Catelyn tries to intervene, scolding the lances for trying to punish a person who saved their lives. She threatens the lances that her parents will not tolerate this, but she is quickly interrupted by Beret as she reveals that this decision has the approval of both the king and queen. Realizing that there is no way out, Arthur asks to talk with his family once more, where he again puts up a brave front, telling his family to not worry and that the misunderstanding will be cleared up, reassuring them that everything would go back to normal soon. But his family doesn't believe him, and they begin to cry. Arthur tries his best to be strong for them as he turns his back and goes back to Beret. Before Arthur gets too far, his father calls out for him and tells Arthur that no matter what anyone says about him, his family will always have his back, so no matter what, he needs to make it back to them. As he holds back his tears, Arthur nods in acknowledgement to his father's words. He continues back to Beret, as his family is seen crying, as their son goes off to face the unbearable hardships up ahead.